want my drink. I want a drink. I want some.
Have a drink over here?
You're a Coke.
Yeah, take a nap, I dare you.
Are you ever nice?
All the time. Yes, I'm nice. I'm nice. My alter ego is nice. My alter ego plays some of the sweetest characters that this country's seen on television. You know that.
How would you describe your alter ego?
If we're talking about Freddy's good side, Freddy's nice. Freddy has lots of gifts for the boys and girls. Lots of toys. Lots of things to play with. Lots of no-dos.
What is it that puts you in the Freddy character? Is it as the makeup takes over?
Exactly. Nail on the head. When I first read for the role, and when I first prepared for the role, I knew I had to live up to the makeup and the framework of the story. But that the consolidating of that work became very quick and apparent to me. I would just simply watch the mirror. You know, this takes 3.5 hours, 4 hours sometimes, depending upon if the hand is made up or the shoulders. So I would just sit there and deal with a little bit of the aggravation and pain or the heat and watch the mirror and kid around with my makeup man. And by the time it's done, I'm pretty ornery. You know, I'm pretty itchy and pretty hot. And I just sort of use that. Worked years ago with Jeff Bridges, and I've never seen an actor master the simmer better, keeping that energy close to the surface for 8, 10, 12, 14 hours. And I use the aggravation of the makeup to recall Freddy, keep him there underneath. Plus, the wardrobe I wear and stuff is befouled with grease and stuff. And this is not an acting trick. This just sort of happened to make it look as foul as they wanted it. And I use that too. I mean, when you're greasy and foul and wearing itchy wool under the lights, boy, you can call up on that stuff pretty quick.
Can I go back and ask it another way? And I'm wondering, is when you get to the point where Freddy takes over your vision, there is no one else that you're facing except Freddy. What feelings go through you, the human feelings? Do you say goodbye to your other self?
The tricks I use. I've always worked with young, attractive actors in the Nightmare films. So the tricks is my own envy as a slightly older actor, an actor who's not a youth film actor any longer. And I simply can use that. I can use their beauty alone. And an envy for that, or the fact that I'm not a kid anymore. That's an actor trick that I use. When I lose the control, part of that is simply that I know I can, quote, act in this part. Whether it's operatic or however broad it needs to be to live up to the makeup. And once you start letting that kind of energy course through you, you're there. I mean, I'm full of that heat and that anger. It's those what is this, sluice the right word? Those floodgates are open and those juices are flowing. And I just don't worry about the governor anymore that I would be worried about as a film actor with my own face. I don't have to use that value judgment. So I have that extra bit of lack of concentration that I don't have to give to that, and I can just sort of flow, you know, with those emotions a little more, because I don't have to be I don't have to have that governor on my own vanity. Is this my good side? Is this my bad side? Am I using my face too much? I don't have to worry about that because I'm animating this makeup.
Is the makeup itself I know it's a long process. Is it an uncomfortable process?
Only if they've lied to me. Only if they've told me, you know, or 3 or 4 in the morning and they say, tomorrow's your day off, you know, we don't need you tomorrow, and I tear it off. And then some AD comes in skulking, you know, and I can tell he's brought me too much food or he's being too nice, and they say, Robert, you know, we screwed up. They need you in at dawn tomorrow. And I've just torn the makeup off, which I'm not supposed to do, but many times that's the only goal I have at the end of a 14 or 15 hour day under this stuff. And I'll tear it off because I know I have a whole day to heal. and I have to come back in 5-6 hours and put it all back on, so I'm putting the glue on raw skin then. And that's bad, and I'm upset then. And those days I'm particularly ornery. Yeah, and that's happened a lot. That happened a lot on part 2.
That must be you at your best. Is it deep down a wonderful feeling to be so bad?
Yeah, it is. I think any actor would tell you this. I don't think it's just me, just Freddy, but anybody that would tell you this, and get a couple of beers in most actors, and they'd cop to wanting to have the restraints removed that you have when you're playing in a style like this, or in a makeup like this, or in a genre like this. And you can kick out the jams, as we used to say in the 60s. You can really push some limits that you want to do. I get to work with fire. I get to work with nubile teenage girls in jeopardy. I get to work with stuntmen that make me look superhuman. I can pick up guys by their throat and pitch them across the room. And you dance it a little bit, and that's fun. It's wonderful to do. And when you're doing that, you also tend to explore some evil in your own soul, in your own dark side. And there's a richness there. There's a richness. Wes explores this in his writing, Wes Craven, and I get to explore it a little bit in some of the lasciviousness when I work with the others. And it gives me line readings, and it gives me physical choices that I normally never get to touch upon as a straight actor, although I'm a character actor and I'm known as a character. Still, I never ever have touched on those parts of myself before, except in the Freddy role.
Does it ever frighten you? Because I think we tend to push aside the dark side. I think we all have it.
Yeah.
But we really don't seriously explore it because we're not forced to. I get the feeling that in a perverse, sick way, this is a fantasy that lets you explore it, use it, and walk away from it.
Yeah, it is an advantage. I mean, you do get that purge. I get the purge every time I work as Freddy. I get the power. It's the only time in my life on a set where I can be angry or yell at someone that's made a mistake. I never do that. I was trained with classical English training, and I serve the writer, and I'm a professional all the way. But as Freddy, I shout a little bit at that effects man, and I shout a little bit as that makeup man, and I give him a little bit of grief that I normally wouldn't, because I'm half in character all the time anyway, and I have to keep it close to the surface. And it's their fault they don't get that A and B smoke in there on time, because they don't know how uncomfortable I am under this crap, or under the lights, or outside on a particularly hot day. So I can exploit that. And I do get the purge. Yeah, it is a release. I get to explore some sides of myself that you normally wouldn't get to act on. You'd normally use them as almost a subtext work as an actor. So that is part of the attraction, I think.
One of the things I've heard from other actors is that when they're involved in a very intense role, and I have to say that Freddy's intense, that they take the character home. Now, I don't know where you live.
Yes. There's not a lot of Freddy walking around in South Malibu. No. I don't take him home. I take him off. The only thing that I take home is that, again, I use this word governor, and I mean, for all the people out there who know what I'm talking about in terms of an engine. It's that thing that keeps a car from going faster than it should. If I would get mad at the dry cleaners, or if I get a little mad on the freeway driving into work or home from work after playing Freddy, I do blow it a little quicker because, again, those gates are open. I'm in touch with those emotions much more than I normally would be, and I don't have that check on those emotions as much as I would because I have to get to them quicker. But I don't take him home. No, that's about the only handicap that I retain, from playing Freddy that could ever rear its ugly head every once in a while. I mean, I don't, the voice doesn't happen or anything like that. It's just that potential to that size of anger, that size that I have to, that size that I have to live up to because of the show, because of the style of the show. That does every once in a while. It sneaks out when I'm alone driving to and fro. Yeah, it does. I'm not a real sensitive driver when I'm doing Freddy. I get a little short. It's that guy behind you. That guy behind you in the fast lane. with a rash on his neck. That's why he's so antsy. Double nickels!
What scares you? Anything?
Oh. I have the very same fear that Hitchcock has. Police scare me. Cops scare me. I don't know why. I don't know whether I bought into the fear that I'm supposed to of their uniforms. I've been told by people that I don't have enough healthy fear. And I'm of that generation of young Southern California males that we were weaned on taking dares. I mean, hopping freights at the age of 14. I've surfed 10-foot, 15-foot waves before I had the, dexterity and equipment to surf in size waves like that. I've driven cars awful fast and awful recklessly. Police scare me. Police scare me. Death doesn't frighten me. The thought of old age I look forward to in many respects. And the abstraction of nuclear war and things like that is an abstraction to me. I tend to see, even on my worst days, so much about life that I do like, that the abstracted fear of that, those things, which are very real, don't get me wrong, but they don't really get through to Robert. No, not to me. But something about police, maybe police and math homework are the only two things that have ever frightened me in my life. Yeah.
Any idea when you did the first Nightmare that this was going to take off? I mean, you were absolutely a cult now.
No, I'd be lying in my socks if I told you I thought this was going to be the hit it is. I'm good friends with Mark Hamill, and Mark Hamill knew that Star Wars was going to be a phenomenon. Mark was on my couch rooming with my girlfriend and I up in Laurel Canyon then, and Mark knew. But he knew because he was a science fiction fan himself and had grown up with published letters to Famous Monsters and all of the sci-fi fan magazines, and he knew. And his agent had got him involved with this show, 8 is Enough, and he wanted to get out of it. He knew this movie was going to be huge. But he was the only, I don't even think Lucas knew. I think Mark was the only person that knew then that was going to be a hit. And I learned a little bit from that because I started to get a sense that this thing was going to take off because I had a character taking off on a television series I was doing then called V. And I was doing personal appearances at a major science fiction convention in Manhattan. And I had done several already where I'd signed literally 3,500 autographs. I signed autographs in Sacramento one evening. People waited in the rain for 4 hours to sign my autograph. And this has never happened to me before. This was for V. And I'm in New York doing a similar thing. And at the end of the line, these sort of mothering science fiction fans that loved my little E.T. character changed and they mutated, and I saw this phalanx of heavy metal, sort of Ramones, punk rock, skateboard heavy metal guys in line with their AC/DC t-shirts and their dog collars, and they were all there with their girlfriends and posters, photographs of Freddy I'd never seen bootlegged out of stills from the original Nightmare film, and they'd waited for the entire V contingent and science fiction contingent to leave this convention. They'd been waiting out on Madison and 47th Street for hours, and I said to myself, this has to tell me something. Something's going on here, And this is like before even the first grosses had hit. And then I did a similar thing in Philadelphia, and I went to get like something from the neighborhood pharmacy, and there's a mall in Philadelphia, and I was mobbed. I was chased by hundreds and hundreds of black teenagers down the streets of Philadelphia. And they recognized Freddy. I was out of Freddy drag, and they chased me. They'd seen a National Enquirer blip, or they'd put it together 2 and 2 is 4 from the other show. And I was a bit frightened. This had never happened to me quite like that. And they had taken the sense of humor of Freddy. They were the black audiences picked up on the sense of humor first. They had their tongue in their cheek first. They loved it.
Let's see, did I ask you if you liked him?
If I liked Freddy? Well, I like him. It's hard to separate Robert and the character, and liking the character, liking what the character's done for me in terms of career. But I was trained, again, I'm repeating myself, but I was trained by the English, and one of the best pieces of advice I had, I was doing Iago. And they said, a bad guy never knows he's a bad guy. Iago doesn't think he's the bad guy, And Freddy doesn't think he's the bad guy. Freddy's got a beef. These parents scarred me. This is his beef. And I'm going to get their kids for that. I got off fair and square. Those lawyers got me off, and Freddy's got this legit beef. So Freddy, doesn't think of himself as a bad guy. He's aberrant in that he's in his tastes and in his sexuality and in his compulsions. But he doesn't. I don't think he says that about himself. I think it feels so good to him. The pursuit of this revenge feels so good to him and gives him such a sense of being alive in this whatever strange purgatory that he inhabits, that he's just having a ball out there. And this is what the audience recognizes. It's this glee, this love of the chase, this cat and mouse that Freddy has. It's that same fascination that people have with watching a snake eat a pig or those things that kids have in their rooms in science class, or they feed small rodents with other animals, or they feed small rodents to other animals, or whatever the sequence is there. And it's that thing that Freddy does, Freddy purges an anger that we all feel on the freeway, or that we all feel in the checkout line. And I think that's one of the common denominators that everybody hooks into to him. Freddy's always just it's like James Cagney putting that grapefruit in that woman's face. Or Freddy's doing that to all those people that we wish we could do that to. That overweight suburban couple that's keeping up with the Joneses, or those little trendy rich kids that we all want to hate down deep, that Freddy's punishing. I think people kind of get off on that a little bit. Identify there a little bit. Just like the guy that we want to honk at.
One gets the feeling that you, Freddy, control that wimp actor that is the other side of you.
Yeah, that
Who
wimp.
is the more important?
That punk, that weasel Robert Englund. I have to roust that sucker out of bed every morning to get him to put me on. Yeah. In all fairness, he does take over. Robert's in control about halfway through the makeup. And then something happens. And it's something happens. I'm looking in the mirror and I don't see Robert anymore. It's Freddy looking back. And Freddy's sense of humor takes over. And the voice settles back in the throat. And I have to get all my kidding around going with the girls, with Heather, whoever I'm working with, early on in the makeup session. We have to do our sort of wimpy actor, key-sheeting conversation so the girls can trust me, so I can go in there and molest them a little bit and really rough them up. So they have to trust what's left of that actor. So, because by the time it's action, about the only technical things that I'm worried about anymore is just simply lights and marks. And they know they can trust the control factor, but yeah, he does. Freddy rules about halfway through the makeup session.
I got to see you work for a few minutes today, and I really felt that Robert was totally gone. I mean, I don't know if you put him in a box someplace, but even off camera, you were Freddy. I mean, every movement, everything. There was no Robert.
Well, some of it's literally living up to the technology of the makeup or the costume. My breath is different because my breath is hotter because of the makeup and the various appliances that I have. That changes. I don't blink like Robert because I have glue into my eyelids. It's not my mouth because I have teeth and prosthetic in my mouth. So all that stuff I have to accommodate, and the accommodation gives me a different posture and a different feeling. And so part of what happens is the accommodation of that stuff becomes habit, and then the habit becomes real, and that's who you see standing around the set spearing hors d'oeuvres, from one of the craft service people. And it's like Robert would, if somebody walked by with a donut, Robert would grab the donut, but it's not Robert anymore, it's Freddy, thank you very much, that's spearing that donut as it goes by. And I would never do it anymore like Robert. I can't. I've got this thing on my hand, that weighs a pound, and these blades. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to pick my nose as Robert and almost cut my nose off, So, I mean, there's no reason being Robert anymore. I leave that wimp back in the dressing room.
Don't you just love who you are? Look at all the power that you demand. People are terrified. You can get a path made instantly.
I'll tell you a story. Last year I was sort of Grand Marshal of the Greenwich Village Day Parade, Manhattan. This is kind of an honor, and it has a lot of tradition involved with it, but it's also pretty freaky in its own right. New York, New York. And I was assigned these drum corps from the High School of Performing Arts. Fame, I'll sing this song forever until I drive you insane. Excuse me, not one of my faves. Get those little Fame girls if I can when they take a nap. Anyway, Freddie's there, Grand Marshal of the parade. I wore a trench coat, signature fashion statement of the Flasher in New York, which I thought was appropriate, and I was also freezing my off. The drum beat was a funeral dirge, like a New Orleans funeral dirge. Brum, bum, bum. So we had this pace going, and we had this trench coat. We had the full Freddie makeup. And I saw the Freddie fans cheering me. And I worked with a sun gun, which is a minicam light. And the minicam guy was walking backwards, and that illuminated me in a rather harsh, uncomplimentary, as if Freddie needed a complimentary light. And I walked winding through all the wonderful streets, narrow cobblestone streets of the West Village. And I started to see women my age, mothers, in their Eddie Bauer vests and their down vests and their Barbra Streisand curly hair, very liberal and content. And they were looking at this dreadful child killer who was the guest of honor at their wonderful little wimpy West Village liberal dunk for apples traditional parade. And I was taking it over, and I was turning it into street theater and performance art. And I looked over, and their gorgeous young punk rock daughter standing next to them looked up to me and went, "Yo, Freddie, I'll die for you." And I thought, vindicated as an artist, as a ghoul, as a monster, as a man, and yet I'm the contemporary of their mothers. They don't know that. But it was terrific. I had girls breaking the line with their Lydia Lunch death rock makeup on, whispering in my latex ear, "Freddie, I'll die for you," with lines from the first movie. And it was a real strange experience for me. It was completely performance art. I was using all the experiences I had as a stage actor and playing it. I turned off after a while because it was getting out of hand. People were now breaking the police barriers and stuff. So we cut off just before Christopher Street. The entire parade followed Freddy Krueger, left the route of the parade and followed us. We had to run for the limo. Guys were stomped and trampled. Their drums were, the guys in the performing arts were mobbed and trampled. Those guys all had dates for 6 months, they told me later, just for being Freddy's drummers. Who knows? Go know, as they say. Who knows? But it was, that's a story about the power. And yes, I got off on it. Yeah, it was pretty terrific. It was like being a rock star. And the only time I've had that was when I did the play Godspell in New York and had rock and roll music under my performance as Judas. And I could feel that power, which is, I guess, the attraction of that. But yeah, it was pretty remarkable.
But I think what I'm hearing is that in all your sickness,
sick is relative.
You're sexy in a sick way.
We'll have lunch. No, it's not, I don't think that he's, I don't know what's sexy. It's all different. I don't know. I think to me the most beautiful woman in the world is Charlotte Rampling, and I have male friends that think she's an anorexic type that's not sexy at all. I can't imagine a more beautiful woman. Sexy is relative. I don't know what that means. I think that a lot of sex comes down to power. And a lot of power has to do with somebody being in control, and that has to do with absolute. And Freddie is absolute. He is absolute evil. And if there is an attraction there, that's the attraction. And he can take care of business. And people are always attracted to somebody that can take care of business.
Do you ever have nightmares? You cause nightmares.
The one nightmare I've had as Freddy, and this is, you're not getting this, this is not first edition. I've told this story before, but I have two of them. One of them I used years ago, and I was debating about trying to get out of the draft or not, and I wound up getting out because I have arthritis in my right wrist from falling down on ice so much back east when I was working in the theater. But I used to have a recurring nightmare, whichever woman that I was infatuated with, or whichever girl I loved, and it was the strangest dream in the world. And I know it has lots of weird implications. I'm probably going to get letters about this, but I was always like a hero, and then I would be mortally wounded. This is real mythology and Bullfinch's mythology and classic Arthurian stuff. But I would never be consummated, and I would sort of like die in her arms with one strand of blood coming out of the corner of my mouth. Very romantic. I don't know whether I'd seen an old Robert Wagner movie, and that's where I got the image from, or what, Prince Valiant or something. But I had that dream from the time I was literally 6 years old until I was 20 years old. Recurring dream. It was like counting sheep for me. It's how I would get to dream. Whichever girl I had a crush on, being a little small kid in junior high school, the pretty girl in my class, the Cheryl Tiegs girls that all were sitting all around me when I was in the 10th grade in high school, that I coveted, whatever. Recurring in a strange dream, and whoever the foe changed always. As a child, it was the Cold War. I can remember literally once saving all the pretty girl that I used to play handball with in the 4th grade from communists that I'd seen in Port Chop Hill or something, raiding the thing. But it was a nightmare. It was strange and exaggerated, and I can remember the images to this very day. Cut to Nightmare 1. Sleeping in my honey wagon on Santa Monica Boulevard, in the worst part of Hollywood. We're doing a lock-off shot for effects with Heather and I. And it's the hour of the wolf. It's that hour before dawn where everything's strange and the bugs aren't even awake, and it's just strange. They have, again, those little first assistant directors have scheduled it wrong. And they've kept me there too long, and I've gone back to the honey wagon in full Freddy makeup and drag to try to catch some, 40 winks. And I've gone to sleep. My girlfriend's come to pick me up to drive me home, tear the makeup off at home. Been working for days. We're cuddling on the single thin cot. You couldn't do anything but cuddle on this thing in the dressing room. Hour of the wolf, that weird twilight. It's funnier than twilight before dusk. It's a different color. It's bluer. I pass out. She's out. And bang, 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 the first assistant director knocks on the door of the honey wagon, and I bolt up. Well, if you know how a honey wagon is architecturally, as I sit up, I'm facing a mirror, the makeup mirror. And who sits up into frame with me looking back at me but Freddy? And I've completely forgotten that I'm in the makeup. And I've got that funny breath you have in the morning mouth, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not quite conscious, and I've heard this strange metallic banging on this funny door, this trailer that I'm in, and I've been sleeping funny in my body. And I was in a state for almost a minute, putting two and two together. I had been dreaming about the performance. I'd been dreaming about the work. Where was Robert? There was Freddy, sitting up and seeing the move of him sitting up, rolling into my frame, as it were. And then a beat later, poor Roxanne sits up, and she looks over the back of my bald, slick, greasy Freddy head and into the mirror, and she sees it too. And she lets out a scream. Her scream scares me. And the punchline is that I saw all that in the mirror. So that seared itself into my brain. It's one reason they don't let actors watch themselves over and over again in dailies. You see yourself as you've never seen yourself before. You see yourself repeating an action over and over again, not edited with other people listening and talking in cars and planes and birds, but over and over and over again until it drives you nuts. And that moment, because of the moment of time it was and because of where we were, late and exhaustion and everything else, it's burned itself. And I dream that over. I dream it now, and I dream it a million different ways and in a million different contexts. And it's kind of frightening. I wish I'd never have seen that. Because there was just a little bit of me left in my body, just a little bit of Robert waking up and moving the way Robert wakes up or stretches when he does. But there was this bald, ugly, wet, dripping thing. And then my girlfriend popping up right next to me and screaming at me. Because it's my brain that's operating now. I'm not in character as Freddy. And that was a weird one. That's like the worst nightmare that I've had because of the nightmare films.